Phone call with Yuki. Oh, really? It's tough when it's such a sudden assignment. Please be careful. Where are you headed? You're already there. Whenever I headed out on assignment, she would ask where. Not just Yuki, but anybody who would have asked the same question. If it was a cold place, she would urge me to pack a thick jacket. If it was far, she'd warn me to be careful on the drive over. It was just a normal, everyday concern that led to asking such an obvious thing. I felt sad that I couldn't answer such a run-of-the-mill question. Sorry, it's something that you can't talk about, isn't it? Please, be careful. Sorry, Yuki. At some point you started apologizing right away. Even though when you first started your job, you were all gung-ho about it. Hee hee. Yuki laughed as though she had realized something. At times like this, Yuki had the magical power to see right through me. It's already been quite a while since I was admitted to the hospital. Are you finally getting lonely? Don't tease me. I'm too old to get lonely. Oh, really? You actually like to be doted on, don't you? Don't you start getting a little faint of heart when I'm not around? Hee hee? Ah, geez, I can see the little devil horns sprouting from your head right now. You've always been like this. You can't hide it, you can't hide it. If I don't play with you, you'll get all lonely. I can hear your tail wagging over the phone. Hee hee hee. This side of Yuki wasn't something you could guess existed from seeing her usual modest behavior, and it was something that she didn't show to anybody else but me. Normally I'd poke her to hide my embarrassment and bring an end to the conversation. But I couldn't do that over the phone. Of course Yuki was clever, she was teasing me because of that. Hee hee hee. I wonder when I figured out that giving you grief with this was this much fun. Give me a break. In any case, it's good to hear you so lively. I know, right? Did I cheer you up? I had called Yuki to keep her from feeling lonely when she was by herself in the hospital room. Of course, that was nothing more than a pretense that I, being shy, had come up with. It seemed that Yuki had long since seen through that act. Yeah? Please phone again. When I'm not feeling up to it, I'll get my father to talk with you. Although if you're talking with my father, I get the feeling that you'd be standing at attention at the other side of the line. Hee hee. For a while longer, Yuki kept teasing me without letting me end the call. A record of opening remarks. Chairman, members of the party, congratulations are due, as we are celebrating 25 years since our founding. These past 25 years have seen so much growth in the prefecture. The once quiet scenery of nothing but fields now has seen the opening of a new shop for the bullet train stop, and with the development of the highway, we've seen the rebirth of a modern city bursting with youthful energy. We've reaped the benefits of new businesses and industry, and with special reverence, the residents of XX Prefecture have time for honored traditions, history and culture, business and industry. With these ideals in harmony, they have accomplished in growing their city into one of Japan's foremost metropolises. Of course, the development of the prefecture couldn't have happened without the growth of the party. We are resolved to see every one of our campaign promises to fruition. Reaching our targets definitively, and expediently like arrows fired from a bow. With these arrows as the fundamental basis of the party, our members have sought to pierce the obstructions preventing the happiness of the residents of Prefecture. But I do believe that everybody here is unlike an ordinary arrow, while being as unfaltering and straightforward. We have not neglected in seeking solutions that conform to the current day and age, while also keeping an eye on the future. An arrow once loosed can only fly to its destination. Everyone here, however, is no simple arrow, even once loosed from a blow, without neglecting our studies, while employing new methods and implementing more effective and flexible ideas, thus being able to change trajectories mid-flight. We are magical arrows. The modern age marches ever forward. Sometimes it marches faster than the time taken from planning to execution. The following part was not in the script. It is thought to have been ad-libbed by the minister. For example, there have recently been numerous problems with the Himatsubushi power plant project. Rather than forcing through the project solely because it was decided upon by the government, it is necessary to reflect on and adjust to the ever-changing needs of the residents, the region, and the next generation. The local protests by the residents that surround Himatsubushi Dam, these are also the will of the people of the prefecture. If you feel there is no need to listen because the project has already been finalized, then you do nothing more than shed a poor light on Japan's post-war democracy. The following is as per the script. For the lasting happiness of the citizens of Japan and the residents of prefecture, please consider these policies thoroughly. I believe, however, we have all gained something from the flexibility and foresight of the party. I've taken up much of your time. However, allow me to say the following to celebrate the 25th anniversary of our founding. Chairman, members of the party in attendance, thank you very much for today. From the opening remarks at the Party Prefectural Forum on the 25th anniversary celebration. Gears and fire and the taste of honey. The world is filled with people blessed with relationships. Of course, that doesn't mean that everyone is connected to each other. It's obvious that on the other side of the planet, there are people laughing and crying who can't possibly have an effect on you. However, in the extremely limited community of the neighborhood, that sort of connection is just a matter of fact. It's quite possible that a single remarkable event could have massive consequences inside a small community. If you were to increase that in scale, a perfect stranger on the other side of the globe might become enough of a legend to have an effect on our lives. Well, it's not always that way. Like I said at the beginning, the links between people basically aren't that relevant in the grand scheme of things. Whether some household nearby is having steak or croquettes doesn't matter to me. When I put on my shoes, it doesn't matter to anybody whether I put the right one on first or the left. This much the average person can understand. But actually, in reality, this is the truth. The bonds between people are quite well defined. It's not just a matter of distance, of being far or near. For example, let's say that person A's actions have some effect on me. Even then, person B's actions could have absolutely no consequence on my life. The reverse also holds true. Just because my actions affect person A, that doesn't always mean that they affect person B as well. Let's put it bluntly, the bonds between people are like gears in the machine. The gear that represents me meshes with some people, but is isolated with others. But there are some who would try arguing against this. Those people would bring up the example of gears in a clock. Each gear is indeed only directly meshes with one or two others. However, if you were to rotate one gear, the one next to it is moved, which connects to the next one, and the next. In the end, all the gears are moving. There is a logic behind this, more than enough to convince the average person. Why is the argument convincing? The answer is simple. The relationships between people are ambiguous and can only be described conceptually. How the gears are connected to each other, how their movements are chained together, can't be used as a fundamental explanation, so it throws a wet blanket on that argument. So for the people who like that explanation, I'll use the example of a clock again to refute it. First of all, to say this world is a singular clock would be wrong. That is, there isn't only one clock. There exist many clocks in this world, each counting their own time. If you think about it, the idea that this world is just one big clock is the height of arrogance, even if you use the analogy of gears to explain human relationships. Then you should be able to explain it using an analogy of multiple clocks unrelated to a single gear. Neighbors A and B. A is a gear in the same clock as me, so it's best to remain civil. B is a gear in a different clock, so he doesn't really matter to me at all. That's the kind of clear distinction I'm talking about. You want to say I'm being fallacious? Then let's change the analogy to something more familiar so you can understand. You've probably heard the phrase, a fire on the opposite shore, sometime in your life, no? For example, if your neighbor's house was on fire, you'd probably try to help him put it out, wouldn't you? It'd be awful if the fire spread and burned down your own house after all. But what if that fire was in a town on the opposite side of a river? Would you still go out of your way to help? You wouldn't, would you? Even though it would be the wrong thing to do, there's no way the fire could spread to your own house. Even if it turned into a huge conflagration, there's no relation between those houses that will spread fire to yours and those that won't. With this basic example, you should be able to see the difference between gears that are and aren't related to your own. Having said that, there's still a lot to think about, even without a river to divide it. After all, it's not a spatial problem like being on the other side of the river, is it? The chick and the trunk. The car had stopped, but he didn't know any more than that, for not only was he blindfolded but locked in the trunk of the car. How could people become this powerless just by being robbed of their sight? He absolutely wouldn't have known this without experiencing it firsthand. He soon realized it was pointless to try and undo his bonds, with the confines of the trunk quickly making him lightheaded. He had no choice but to let this mild torture dull his senses. That's why when the car stopped, the unpleasant vibration ceased. As the engine was killed, he couldn't help but delude himself that he was being set free, even though nothing had been resolved in reality. Of course, he was soon removed from that delusion. He strained his ears when he heard one of the men who had abducted him and the older men he was hearing for the first time strike up a conversation. "Nice to see you. The chick is in the trunk. He struggled so much that he's probably exhausted right now. But there's not a mark on him, just as ordered. Oh, must have been a handful." The trunk opened, letting in a blast of fresh, cool air, even though up until now, just now, he had been thinking about getting out of that stuffy trunk. When it was actually opened, he suddenly became uneasy, enough so that he wished that the lid of the trunk would once again close, separating himself from them. Suddenly, somebody stroked his head. Of course, since he was blindfolded, he couldn't tell if the hand was petting him or simply evaluating how easy it would be to remove his scalp. Unable to tell the difference, he could only freeze as he imagined the worst-case scenario. Poor little bugger. He's shaken. Just stay calm for a bit. The older man said that kindly, as he gently stroked the boy's head. This must be real tough for you. But you see, your Gramps is a nice man. He'll help you soon enough. Haven't heard nothing but the average standard dialect his whole life. The older man's distinct intonation left a deep impression on the boy, but he had no idea what he was saying. For your Gramps to register as meaning your grandfather took a while to process. Eventually the hand that was stroking his head loosened the blindfold. Can't keep his eyes covered. If he splits his face open, it'd be bad. And with that, we may as well take out the gag. It can't breathe like that. It'll be trouble if he yells. Leave him to us. Geez, you guys don't know how to treat somebody. That Mayan family said no rough stuff. You better remember that well. Yeah, we won't do anything stupid. As long as the kid cooperates, that is. The man's hand prodded roughly and repeatedly at the boy's head, a rugged hand unlike the affectionate one that had been stroking his head before. Just stay cooperative. If you struggle, there's no guarantee what will happen. That cliched threat was literally beaten into his head. Waking up in a cheap hotel in the city was by no means pleasant. I remembered, even during the long camping trips we had during grade school, I wanted to get home quickly, counting out the days left with my fingers. Waking up this morning, I was somehow reminded of that. Was it a need to be with my wife when she gave birth? A particular type of homesickness? I remember when my son was born. I remember building his crib. I also remember building his toddler bed. I also remember lots of very bad things during the divorce process, especially times seeing him get in a car and go away. As a protective member of society, as a public servant bound to fulfill his duties, it was pathetic indeed. Those negative emotions faded as I downed my breakfast, which was surprisingly not half bad. The meeting with the informant that she had provided would be tonight. Till then, I couldn't just be lazing around. The Onagafushi Defense Alliance was protesting the dam's construction in various ways. Included in this was a strategy for improving public relations, which could be categorized in two major forms: combative and peaceful. In regards to the former, as an attempt to keep law enforcement in check. They appealed to the public's sympathy by highlighting the oppressive and inhumane tactics of the police and the brutality of the riot squads. The latter peaceful route stressed how precious the natural surroundings of Himatsubushi was, seeking people who would oppose the dam on environmental grounds. As a part of that, the village Himatsubushi had invited celebrated zoologists and botanists, as well as environmental groups, to advertise the nature surrounding the town. According to the news in recent years, there had been a group calling itself Himatsubushi Nature Watching, setting up free sightseeing tours. I would have liked to have taken advantage of the opportunity, but when I called the village administrative offices, they responded that it was too late to put in an application for the tour, and they were still undecided as to when they'd be doing another one. I see. So there's no applications for next time. Too bad. Are you a member of an environmental group, or maybe somebody from a magazine? No, just here privately. Privately? Then you're a tourist. Something like that. It's my hobby to take pictures that display how beautiful nature can be. I read in a magazine that there were some precious nature reserves here, so I was looking forward to it. I knew there was an article that had something like that written in it, but I hadn't actually read it. Was it this ad-libbed lie not going to work? However, contrary to my expectations, the person I was speaking to laughed happily. Wahaha. Then come. The village is a little busy right now, but you're totally welcome here. Wahaha. In that case, I'll graciously accept the offer. Thank you. How are you getting around? Car? If that's the case, could I ask for your license plate number? No. There's no ulterior motive behind that. Wahaha. That was probably related to the checkpoints they'd set up on the way to the village. If I didn't give them my license plate number, I'd most likely be hindered in various ways. I thought about using the car I had borrowed from the prefecture, but I was lost to whether it was okay to tell them that plate number. If the Onagafushi Defense Alliance was behind this incident, there was no guarantee that they wouldn't be able to find out who I was. I had to play it safe, so I elected to refrain from using the car. No, actually, I'm not using a car. If there's a bus or something, I'd prefer that. We do have a bus, actually. The route is going to be discontinued soon, though. You can take that. It departs from Okonomiya Station. Thank you very much. I'll look out for it. When will you be coming? Is it your first time in Himatsubushi? If it is, you must be unsure about a lot of things. If you let me know, I can have somebody show you around. Oh no, I couldn't ask that much of you. Waha, don't worry about it. That's just a bit of PR we do to protect nature around the village. Judging by what I saw at the checkpoint, the villagers were at the very least wary of outsiders. That's why in order to move in and out of the village freely, I had to travel with someone like Oishi, or side with the dam protests, having an interest in natural environment surrounding the village tied into the peaceful type of PR that the village was using. I was a bit against having a watchdog attached to me, but that might actually work out in my favor. The entire village was fired up about the dam protests, so I might be lucky enough to hear some especially candid opinions from the residents. Given that, there was no real reason for me to refuse their offer. Is it really all right? If so, that'll really help. After that, I was shown the bus schedule and directed to which bus I should get on. Somebody would come and meet me at the bus stop in the village. After showing me around a spot I'd taken interest in, there was no doubt they'd bring me to somewhere like an anti-dam information center. Then, over a cup of tea, they'd try to indoctrinate me into accepting their principles and beliefs. Well, if that was their aim, there'd be a lot of freebies involved. The world is all about give and take, after all. I couldn't be going in a suit I pulled some plain clothes out of my travel case and changed into something more casual. We're just like throw on a fucking Slipknot shirt and some black pants. After that, after calming down by watching some local television, I left the hotel and set out for Okonomiya Station. The bus route that I was told would soon be discontinued certainly didn't look that way. There was more than enough trips on the schedule, and the number of passengers was by no means sparse. It was the main link to Okonomiya, the only town in the area. The types of passengers that stood out were older folk who didn't look like they could drive and housewives who didn't seem like they had a license. If the area was submerged at the bottom of the lake, it wouldn't matter if there was a bus route. That's why it was going to be discontinued, in the unnatural scheme of things. I could catch a glimpse of the government's intent in cutting off their means of transportation to bully the village and emptying out sooner. It makes sense. According to the documents, talks between the Ministry of Construction and the locals broke down quite early. The government decided from the start to take an aggressive stance in the matter. It was like the fairy tale with the north wind and the sun trying to get the traveler to remove his cloak. Even their bullying had meaning to it. The reason why the Onagafushi Defense Alliance resisted so violently was because the government was doing unseemly things like that. I was somebody who lived in Tokyo, so for a village or two out in the boonies like this to be submerged didn't seem like a big deal, but I guess for somebody actually living here, it would be a vitally huge problem. This route will be discontinued on the... Thank you for your patronage up to this point. We look forward to your continued patronage on our other lines, transportation. Gazing lazily at the notice of discontinued service posted inside the bus, I counted down the number of stops until the designated one. Along the way we passed through the checkpoint without stopping. They knew what time the bus was coming, so they had opened up the barricade ahead of time. From here on out was enemy territory. My palms, at some point, became coated in a thin film of sweat. Now arriving at Ukita Waterworks. Are there any passengers disembarking? I hurriedly pressed the stop request button as the designated stop was announced. For none of the numerous passengers to be getting off here meant that it must be quite a remote place. In actuality, the stop I got off at was abnormally run down, though I could tell it was barely used. As soon as I stepped out, an intense atmosphere completely different than the interior of the bus assailed my body. Right now, Ueshi or Motodai weren't beside me. That's right, at present, I was alone in the middle of enemy territory. My adversaries probably thought I was just an ordinary tourist, but that was nothing more than a ruse. But if by some mistake my true identity was to be exposed, it brought back the terrifying words I had heard at the prefectural office that if somebody was attacked in Hinamazawa with a knife, there wouldn't be any evidence left behind. I didn't seem suspicious, did I? My clothing was currently casual. It was exactly the type of clothing that a city slicker that viewed the countryside as a wholesome getaway would wear. A camera and knapsack. Inside were various things needed for hiking. It was still only June. Maybe it was unusual, but the sun was shining down like it was already the middle of summer. I wonder if we'll get to see the Watanagashi. The fact that I didn't bring a hat must seem odd. No, it wasn't something to be that concerned about. It's alright. I was just a normal tourist. Just normal. Was there anything suspicious about me? asking that as I turned around to look at the bus that was departing. All the passengers by the window were staring down at me silently. They were staring right at me as if they had seen right through my proud little outfit, just staring, looking down on me. Countless stares rained down like needles on me from the windows open to air out the bus. All that rained down were stares. None of them were saying a word, but all the more. Their silent stares told me more than a million words could. Hurry up and go back to Tokyo, you outsider. There was no reason for me to speak. My quiet voice was drowned out by the sound of the engine. The bus, as if to torment me, set out slowly, and after doing more than enough to intimidate me, sped off. A thin film of sweat began to rise from my entire body. According to the documents, it was a village that seemed very wary of outsiders. Its population was small as well. They saw an unfamiliar face, they would be quick to identify that face as an outsider. On top of that, nobody else had gotten off at this stop. It was a bus that they normally just passed on by. Somebody actually getting off there? There was no doubt that had drawn some attention. But this wasn't a slip-up. They were the ones who directed me to get off at this stop. There was nothing to worry about. I knew that I was just nervous, since this was my first undercover assignment. My more seasoned colleagues referred to us as the new generation that didn't know how to lose their cool. But that wasn't true at all. Phew. In order to calm my breathing down, I exhaled the unpleasant air residing in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't help but pray that my apprehensions would disappear like the white clouds of exhaust expelled from the bus. There was a small shed there to serve as a shelter if it rained, and it was there I decided to wait. Inside the shed, one wall was plastered with posters advertising the dam opposition efforts. It was like the heartfelt screams of the villagers were recorded on that wall. Inside that shelter, I felt an inexplicable pressure. It wasn't like I had any real relation to the dam project, but still made me feel hesitant about being inside there. That was just how filled with the force of denial that space was. And inside that uneasy space was a girl. Inside that shed, covered in words written in broad brushstrokes, berating the policies regarding the dam and calling for action, there was a girl sitting there with a drowsy gaze, as if half asleep. The two images clashed so much that I could only stand there dumbfounded for a moment, trapped in such a surreal moment. If I stepped inside, who knew what kind of oafish noises I would accidentally make? I couldn't be disturbing this girl's slumber like that. Having thought this, I gave up on entering the shed. It was just a sleeping kid. So why was I so worked up about it? Finally, I realized this girl to us, as a married couple, was the very image of our ideal child. Even after numerous examinations at the hospital, we didn't know for sure what our child's gender was. Whether we could tell If they were a boy or girl was, in the end, dependent on whether or not we can get an image of their genitalia. There was, of course, no guarantee that it was a girl, but with things the way they were, the possibility was high. Even so, Yuki had been saying that the chances that it was a boy or girl were even. But in my heart I already decided that our coming child was a girl. Since the day I decided that, until now, it was so fun to imagine how our child would grow up, that I couldn't help myself. Amongst those numerous imagined forms, the one that I thought to be the most ideal had materialized right in front of me. Of course, a little of it was due to the circumstances. In my ideal image, her hair would be on the short side. The girl in front of me, though, had long hair. It was almost as if somebody had taken my ideal and somehow made some small adjustments. It certainly wasn't something unpleasant. Even so, I felt like I was sullying her just by looking at her like that. She had an immaculate, no, a divine air about her. Well, that girl with an angelic smile, with a yawn wide enough. You could see her molars. With a yawn wide enough, you could see her molars. Woke up all of a sudden. I didn't mean to peep, but locking eyes with a girl who had just woken up like this somehow made me feel like I was playing a prank on her. I wasn't doing anything shady, but I became flustered. The girl spoke. No, cried out? Meep!